Thank you, everyone. Good morning. I'm really excited to be here, and I'm glad that all of you could make it here to the xChange conference. So earlier this morning, I hope you got a pretty good overview of Serena's new strategy, where we're going, and a little bit of a taste of orchestrated IT and what that means. What I'm going to be talking about now, I'm going to drill down a little bit and talk about Serena's vision and roadmap for orchestrated ALM. We'll get into a little bit more of the details. So, an orchestrated ALM is our strategy for managing the application delivery process. So how organizations actually deliver applications from demand coming in from the business through to deployment into the production environment. So let me start by talking about some of the application delivery challenges facing organizations. So I spend a lot of time out meeting with customers and trying to understand some of the challenges that folks face. And I think you saw a slide that was similar to this morning. But if you look at an organization, if you look at what you need to do to deliver applications and products to market, it's a pretty complex process, and there's a lot of stakeholders involved. So it all starts from the demand coming in from the business. You have to manage the development process. Again, you have multiple teams. They may be distributed across multiple sites, perhaps due to acquisitions, perhaps due to offshoring. You have to coordinate all that. You might have a mix of agile techniques and waterfall techniques that you're using. And again, business value is not actually derived. It's not actually delivered until you actually release an application into the production environment or until you deliver a product to market. So you have to be looking at that entire end-to-end process. Now, when I talk to customers, some of the challenges that I actually hear people talk about is, one, it's very hard to get business and IT alignment. What I hear oftentimes from IT organizations is there's more demand coming into the IT organization than they can possibly handle. So there's no single system to capture that demand, as John mentioned this morning. There's no good way to categorize, prioritize that to ensure that what you are going to do is the highest business priority. So that's a big challenge. Because of that distributed nature of teams, team collaboration becomes very challenging. And what we actually see is many organizations have team silos. So the quality team may be using a testing tool, and the PPM team may be using a different tool. But it's very hard to get everyone collaborating and communicating in this broader business process. And make no mistake, if you're in the business of delivering applications, if it's critical to your business, that's a key business process for you. And what we find people doing is they have these tool silos that are automated, but to try to make sense of the overall end-to-end business process, they're using manual techniques. They're using spreadsheets. They're using emails to fill the gaps between that. So those are some of the challenges. Now, let's talk about application lifecycle management. It's cited as one of the solutions for these dilemmas. But there's a traditional approach to application lifecycle management, and it actually has some challenges associated with it. So the traditional approach really says take a single central repository and put all of your development artifacts and get everyone using that central tool. Well, it's pretty challenging. First of all, it's very data-centric. It's very much focused on the data and the artifacts and getting them all together and tying it together. As John alluded to before, a lot of times this entails rip and replace. If you go to some of the other vendors, they say, put your entire end-to-end process on our solutions and everything's going to work together cleanly. But as you know, you may have investments in other ALM tools. You've got an investment there, it may be working for you. I mean, you may consider something a best-of-breed product, so you want an on-ramp. You don't want to go through a rip-and-replace process. Again, this leads to issues of vendor lock-in. And one of the other key challenges, if you look at ALM tools, it's traditionally been very narrowly focused on the software development lifecycle, just the development pieces. But if you recall before, it's a much broader problem. So let's take a look at Serena's approach to application lifecycle management. It's a little bit different. So what we call this, we talk about tools plus process. You actually have to have both, in our opinion. So it's still important to have those repositories. It's important to have those practitioner tools, and you can choose the best-of-breed tool, whatever works best for your organization. Again, we don't espouse a rip-and-replace strategy. So you may have tools from Serena. You may have tools from other third-party vendors in there. And again, these are, islands of automation. What you need is that process layer. You need that orchestration layer that's going to tie together all the tools end-to-end and automate that end-to-end business process, allowing you to keep your investment, preserve your investment in the tools that are working for you. Okay? Now, the other thing that's unique about us, again, one of the things I didn't mention before, but when you have some of the traditional ALM solutions, a lot of times they're provided by vendors that have a platform. So if you look at Microsoft.net, their solution very much optimized for that platform. IBM, very much optimized for that platform. What we recognize in many organizations, you have a mix of platforms. Many of our customers have mainframes. You have distributed environments. You may be using Linux. You may be using Windows. You're using .NET. You're using Java. You need to make that all work together. And increasingly, we see adoption of the cloud. People adopting virtualization and private clouds within the data center, and then people also adopting public cloud infrastructure as a service, so Amazon Web Services and so forth. Okay, so this is Serena's unique approach. In this approach, John, in his session this morning, he highlighted some of the endorsements from the industry analysts, and so we've got pretty broad endorsement of Serena's strategy. I wanted to drill down on one, which is Gartner. Gartner provides a definition of application lifecycle management. This has evolved over the years. And if you look at this definition, it very much mirrors what we're saying application lifecycle management is about. It's all about tying together the processes, it's about tying together the tools, and it's tying together the people. And those people may be distributed across a number of locations, right? In ALM, it's not about just the development space. It's actually much broader than just development. You can see here it needs to span from development through delivery into the production environment. So not only does Gartner mirror what we say, what we believe about application lifecycle management, they also rate us positive. And as you saw in John's slides, the other industry analysts echo this as well. Okay? So let's drill down a little bit more. You've seen some of this from John's presentation. We're going to focus a little bit more on the ALM, the application lifecycle management space. So again, we believe the process starts from the demand coming in from the business. So on the left-hand side of the circle, this is the request center. You saw the request center in the demonstration this morning. That's that single portal, that's that single face of IT where business users, customers can actually submit demand in a single place. And some of that demand may be routed to ops. Some of that demand is actually routed into the ALM space. So you may have enhancement requests, you may have new project requests, and those get fed into our requirements management solution where you can actually manage the requirements, you can define those requirements. As you saw, we have a prototype composer capability. So those of you who are building applications with a user interface, you can develop mock-ups, and you can work collaboratively with the business to ensure that what you're going to deliver before you start coding is going to match the requirements. So making sure that you're going to deliver the right product. On the development side, that's the solution that we have for managing the development process. That's for managing all the artifacts, all the development process, version management, configuration management fits into this space. And we support multiple methodologies. So some of our customers are all agile, some of our customers use more traditional techniques, and many customers have a hybrid. So we support multiple methodologies there. Then of course, the process doesn't end until you deliver the applications into production. So release management is an area that we focused on a lot recently. And again, that needs to support a multi-platform deployment environment where you can deploy to mainframe, to distributed, and to the cloud. And many of our customers have a mix of that. So you may have an application that spans mainframe, the distributed world, et cetera. So you need to be able to coordinate those releases. Now, surrounding all of this, you saw this morning, it's worth repeating again. It's one thing to have products in these, but again, to kind of break down those silos, what executives want, someone who's running application delivery, you want that visibility layer. And that visibility layer needs to span that full life cycle, and it needs to pull in KPIs, key performance indicators and metrics, so you can measure how is my business doing? How is my application delivery process? Am I getting better or am I getting worse? Okay. Okay, so let's drill down a little bit and talk about some of the offerings. We've gone high level. So if you drill in specifically to the application lifecycle management space, once things get fed in from the request center, we have 3 solution suites that we're actually working on. And one of them is Requirements Manager for requirements management. We touched on that. The other is Development Manager, and the other is Release Manager. We talked about Process plus Tools. So these solutions include all the practitioner tools and products that many of you folks have been using successfully historically. So this is where the Dimensions product, where Prototype Composer. On the SCM side, Dimensions CM, ZMF, and PVCS. Our development management solutions are designed to work with all those products. And Then what we add to it is what John referred to as the process control layer. So it might be hard to see the colors here, but at the bottom, these things in italic, these are process applications that we've added to the solution. So these work in conjunction with those point products and tools. It provides a process layer that ties everything together within that suite. It also ties it together with the rest of the life cycle. So requirements manager works with dev manager, works with release manager. And it can also tie in third-party products, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. So again, what you get here is you get tools plus process. So if you buy one of these solutions, what it comes with, if you buy Development Manager, you actually get a point product. With our Enterprise Development Manager solution, you get Dimension CM, you get the development control process, you get the SBM platform, and you get integrations with some third-party tools that are out there, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. So for those of you who are using some of the tools, you can also upgrade to these solutions and leverage some of the power of the suite, preserving your investment in Dimensions, for example, if you're using that. Okay? In terms of these products, Release Manager was generally available in the summer, so that's been out for a while, and you can see a demonstration of that over here. I'm happy to announce that as of Friday of last week, we went generally available with our dashboard solution and our Development Manager solution. Those are now available today. As John mentioned, we're working on wrapping up the third one, so our Requirements Manager solution, we're actively working and expect that later on this year, so that'll be coming soon. Okay, so on the prior slide, what I really talked about is how we're going to tie in our stuff. How do we integrate Serena's products and deliver those as more of a suite offering that all works together? So as John said, you guys don't need to be in the business of integrating our solutions together. But to really make it more powerful and to foster this notion that you don't have to rip and replace, what we also do is provide integrations. We'll be delivering integrations out of the box with leading third-party tools. So if you look at that ecosystem, if you look at that tool chain that many organizations have, there's many other tools that you may be using. So you may be using PPM tools from another vendor. You may be using modeling tools within your organization. You may be using a PLM system if you're in the business of delivering products with embedded software. Quality is an area where companies are oftentimes using a third-party tool. So we have out-of-the-box integrations with HP Quality Center, and I'll also point you to two of our partners who are here today, Parasoft and SmartSoft, who have actually developed integrations with Orchestrated ALM. So Parasoft is really in the business of providing policy and process-based solutions for error prevention. So not just ensuring quality, but actually preventing defects based on a policy-based approach. SmartSoft has a very innovative next-gen approach to automated functional testing, and it's integrated within our solution. You can actually see some of the results folded up into our Serena Lifecycle dashboard. Okay? So again, with this, out-of-the-box integrations with this, and the things that aren't on this list, we can still integrate with. All of this is done with the power of SBM. So SBM is very extensible, makes it very easy to tie in third-party tools. So even if you don't see a solution here, a product here on the list, we can very likely go ahead and integrate that in an orchestrated way as well. Okay, I talked about dashboards. So let me drill down a little bit more and talk about what these are. You saw it in the demonstration this morning. A lot of the products, a lot of the standalone tools have dashboards and reporting, but they're very much focused on that tool silo, that single environment. What's unique about the Serena Lifecycle dashboard is that it provides lifecycle visibility. What it can do is it can actually pull in information from multiple products. This can pull in information from multiple Serena products, so information from Dimensions, information from SBM, as well as information from third-party products. So you saw this morning we can pull quality information from a third-party testing tool as well. Now, what we provide, based on our experience, we've been at this for 30 years, so we've learned a lot about best practices and what people should measure here. We provide out-of-the-box key performance indicators that work with our productized solutions, so you can actually measure, again, how is my business doing? How am I doing against these key performance indicators? Am I getting better? Am I getting worse? Where are areas that I should focus in terms of continuous process improvement? Again, we treat this as a business process, this application delivery process. In addition to what we provide, it's very customizable and extensible. When you get it, we have different views for different players in the organization. So we have development management views. We have views for the executive level. We've got views for the quality manager. You can tailor that as well. You can customize what is seen by each role. You can also add new graphs, configure what's there. In addition to what we're providing out of the box, it's very extensible. So if you're using a different third-party testing tool, that can be folded in with the assistance of our services organization as well. And what's unique here as well, it's built on a full business intelligence capability. So as with a full BI and dashboarding tool, you can also do very nice things in terms of calculations, pulling data from multiple systems, doing calculations, as well as trending. So you can do some very nice historical trending. Okay? So, how are we doing all this? When we embarked on this orchestrated ALM strategy a couple years ago, we said, look, we've got a couple point products, we've got SBM, it's got the power of orchestration to tie it all together. But when we set out on this, we said, look, we really need to have an architecture to define what we're doing. So this is what we refer to as the Serena reference architecture. And the Serena reference architecture is the blueprint. It's the blueprint for how we're delivering orchestrated ALM. And if you drill into this architecture, it's got multiple tiers to it. It's got a domain model. It's got an information model. What are all the artifacts and data that I have to manage across the process? It's got a process model that says, what are those key processes in the application lifecycle management space? And those processes are very extensible. We highlight clear extension points where you can go in and tailor it to match your business process, where you can go in and extend it and pull in different third-party tools from your environment. And it has a KPI layer as well that defines the key performance indicators out of this. So this is what we're using to build orchestrated ALM, and this is what our field teams, our solution architects, and our professional services teams are using as the basis when they come into your organization and they want to do a custom implementation and tailor it. They start with the reference architecture, they mark up the extension points, so it really helps ensure successful deployments and something that's going to match what you need in your organization. Okay? Okay, I want to drill down on a couple areas a little bit further. I've talked generally about orchestrated ALM. So John this morning talked about orchestrated IT. And as a reminder, we've talked about orchestrated apps, and now we're talking about orchestrated ops with our service management solution and our request management solution. My colleague, Ali Kay, will come up and he'll be talking more about the request center and more about the service management solution. But I want to drill down on a couple things. One thing that's particularly new is release management. We're making a big investment there based on some of the challenges that customers like you are facing with release management. And I want to talk about how we're going to tie together the apps and ops world, how we're going to kind of actually tie those together in a process-oriented way. So if we drill down on release management, why are we focusing here? Well, first of all, what people may not know is that we've been in the release management business for a very, very long time. So we've been in this business for 30 years. Our configuration management solutions have had release vaulting capability. We recently did a survey that went out to 20,000 people on our mailing list. We had 2,000 people respond. 52% of our customers are using Serena's solutions for release management into production. So, and that's mostly the vaulting capability. But there were other challenges that people were facing. And some of those are highlighted in this Forrester survey that was recently done of 101 IT professionals. And it asked them to rate satisfaction with key aspects of release management. There's a ton on data on here. I'm not sure if you can read all of that up here. But in general, where you see blue, that represents dissatisfaction, and where you see green, different levels of satisfaction. Overall, not much satisfaction. You know, where people are most satisfied is on release quality. But some of the things they're really not very happy with is the levels of visibility. So 64% of the respondents said, I'm not happy with the visibility. And again, this is visibility from the ops guys. What's coming down the pike? What am I getting from the app dev team? From the app side, what's going on in terms of changes in the production environment? There's a new patch level over here. Am I testing on the right patch level so when I deploy, it's not going to break? Visibility is a huge issue. As we talked about before, as teams move to agile development and development teams get optimized and deliver more software for release, the bottleneck starts to happen on pushing the applications into production. So a lot of dissatisfaction with the level of automation. I was out meeting with one of our customers, and they have major releases every 6 weeks. They've got a 192-step manual process. It's documented in Word, it's tracked in manual spreadsheets. They have a $1 million phone call when they go out to release. It's just very, very expensive. And because of market pressures, people want to actually get more releases out faster. They want to move faster, and there's no way to do that in a manual way. So automation becomes crucial to optimizing and addressing this issue. And the last thing is flexibility. It's a very rigid process. We want to make sure we don't affect SLAs. Everything's locked down, very controlled. It's very hard for you to make changes in the process and be very adaptable to change. So flexibility is a huge issue. Okay, so Serena Release Management. Let's talk a little bit more about Serena Release Management. It's got 3 key components to it. One is release control. This is an SBM-based process application. And what it's designed to do is to help you plan, schedule, handle all the approvals of the release process. It provides visibility to all the people affected by the release that are involved in the release, but also stakeholders who are impacted by that release. And it's all centered around this notion of the release calendar. The release calendar provides visibility between the apps and the ops teams and all the stakeholders. Release Vault is the system. It's a gold vaulting capability that really provides a secure and controlled path for your software through all the various stages as you promote it through on its way to production. And we have a couple systems that really serve in this role. Dimension CM has a great deployment capability, what we dub Release Vault, for controlling that path to production and making sure the right software gets deployed and no unauthorized changes are deployed. And then on the mainframe side, with ZMF, we have support for release management on the mainframe. And then finally, to address that automation issue, we have Serena Release Automation. And this is something we deliver in partnership with one of our strategic partners, Nolio. Some of the folks are here today. But this takes all those steps that are manual, all those things that are being done by spreadsheet where you get on the million-dollar phone calls, and it actually automates it. You create a workflow-based approach where you can define all the steps and sequences to deploy the application. Because moving the bits is not enough. There's a lot of other steps. You may have to bring app servers down. You may have to do some configuration on the database. I've got to do that in a sequenced way. I need to wait until the database configuration is done before I take the next steps on the release process. So it's a comprehensive solution. It's the industry's only end-to-end solution that provides this for managing the path to production through development and into the production space. Pretty comprehensive. And what are some of the benefits? Ultimately, the benefits here is you can more confidently release software. And what you can do is you can actually deliver more releases, which is what everyone is getting asked to do, with less resources. So everyone's getting asked to do more with less. This allows you to do that, become more competitive in the marketplace. For the folks on the ops side, if you're on the ops side, you're measured by service levels. You're measured by uptime. And if you have a failed deployment, if you don't complete a release in a maintenance window, there may be breaches of a service level agreement. There may be penalties involved, and there's certainly customer satisfaction issues that are involved here. So Serena Release Manager is the solution for this. Talking a little bit more, for those of you who want to see it, I would encourage you to go over to the demo stations in the pavilion and get a deeper overview of release management. If you kind of look at the roadmap of where we're taking this, this is a big strategic area for us. It's a growing pain point. Gartner has said that it's growing by over 35–40% a year, organizations looking to automate release management. So where are we going? We're going to focus a little bit more on runbook automation. We now have the capability to manage the tasks, the manual tasks, the human tasks that are involved, and the automated tasks. We want to provide more capabilities to make it easier to use so you can manage this more effectively. Some organizations are telling us, I'm delivering a number of apps in a release train, and I've got a whole bunch of database steps. It'd be great if you could show me all the database steps and I could group it together and do it all at once to make it even more efficient. So that's one of the things we're working on. And we're working with our customer advisory board to make this happen. The other thing is impact analysis. So we have impact analysis capabilities that we're working on. So we can assess what's the risk associated with changes that you're doing. So we can assess the changes in the software. We can assess what's going to get affected on the production side. And we can do a risk assessment on that. What's the impact going to be? Where should I focus my testing? And let's say a certain change package is failing. I'm getting to the end and testing shows that it's not ready. I want to pull it out. Well, if I pull it out, there might be dependencies on that. How do I understand what those dependencies are and what the risk is associated with pulling that package out? So this is something we're working on. Today, our release management solution can deploy to the cloud. We can deploy to physical environments. We can deploy to virtualized environments on VMware. And we can also deploy to the cloud to Amazon Web Services, for example. We're going to continue optimizing here. And for people that are working in a virtualized environment, there's a lot of advancements we can make to leverage virtual machines, virtual machine differencing, and so forth. And the other thing we want to do, as John mentioned, because it's built on SBM, this can be deployed not only on-premise, but in the cloud. So we're going to be working on delivering release management as a SaaS offering. So for customers that don't want to implement this on-site, you can actually run it out of Serena's cloud. And then last but not least, the IT service management integration. It's all about orchestrated IT, so we want to focus much more on that front. And you saw a picture of this. John represented this. I want to kind of highlight it again because it's very important. Again, our vision here is that you've got a single request center. It captures all the IT demand. Now, some of that demand is going to go to your help desk. It's going to go to the ops side. These are your incidents, your problems, password resets, and whatnot. But some of that demand is going to filter down into the ALM branch. It's going to go down into the requirements management and dev management solutions. So all the project requests, the new enhancement requests, that's going to flow down. We're going to bake that into Request Center. So Request Center is going to have an integration with our ALM solutions. So if you're using Request Center, using Development Manager, using Requirements Manager, those things are going to be integrated together out of the box. Those services are going to be registered. The other thing is when you go to release, there's a lot of coordination that has to happen. When you actually deliver a release into production, as I alluded to before, there's many times when there's IT changes that have to happen. This new release of the application only runs on this version of WebSphere. This release of the application requires an upgrade to Oracle. So you want to be able to coordinate the changes with that application release. So the release management solution will have integrations with service management to say, as part of this release process, please go ahead and handle the upgrade of the infrastructure that I require. And John talked about this before, but I'll put a picture up here. So today we have the release calendar. It provides visibility of application releases. We really want to break down that wall. We want to break down that visibility wall between apps and ops. So our vision is to evolve this into an IT calendar. So with the IT calendar, not only do you get visibility across the groups to application releases that are coming along, but also plan changes on the IT side. So if IT is planning a change and they're going to upgrade to a certain patch level, a new database version, the folks on the dev side need to be aware of that. Need to make sure that you're testing on those right versions of software. Environment schedule. Many people share an environment. There might be a performance testing environment. There may be a user acceptance testing environment. You need to schedule access into those environments. That can be displayed on this shared release calendar so everyone's on the same page. And people need to be aware of maintenance windows. When is the maintenance window? I need to make sure that I align my releases with maintenance windows. I need to know what the duration of that maintenance window is. So when I'm testing my release, I make sure that I can actually get it done in that window and not breach my service levels. Okay? So this is all about providing greater visibility between apps and ops and fulfilling the promise of orchestrated IT. Okay, talked a lot about IT. I want to shift gears a little bit and talk about another segment where we focus pretty heavily, and this is the systems or embedded software product segment. So we have a number of customers, many in the audience today, that work in industries where you're delivering systems, you're developing products that have embedded software. And many of those are in industries where safety criticality is very important. So a lot of people in the aerospace defense sector, companies that are working in the automotive sector with all the software that's going into the automobile, medical device sector as well. And one of the things that we're seeing here, when I go out and I talk to a lot of the customers in this particular segment, is that there's a growing percentage of software. If you looked historically at products, if you looked historically at automobiles, it was a very small percentage of software. It was mostly hardware, and there wasn't much software. A lot of people don't know this, but in a typical luxury automobile, there's 100 million lines of code in a typical luxury automobile. Compared to a Boeing, compared to the jet fighter, a jet fighter which has 6 or 7 million lines of code. But there's still a ton of software that's going into these products. And what we're starting to see is we're seeing a divide between these two worlds. Typically, most of the development resources, the engineering resources, were on the hardware side. Now, in typical projects, 40% of the resources are on the software development side. And the software development side, they use application lifecycle management tools. If you look at the hardware side, they use product lifecycle management tools. It's an entirely different system. And just as we talked about apps and ops, sometimes there's a barrier here. And what we see in many organizations is because of poor communication between the hardware, the system side, and the software side, is there's an increasing number of errors in proposals that come through because there's not good communication and collaboration between the system side and the software side. What this is resulting in is a very small percentage of success. So only 40% of the products that are coming out are actually meeting the requirements that are set out because there's not good coordination between the business, between the system side, and the software side. So we have a solution for this. We talked about orchestrated IT. We also have a solution that we call orchestrated product development. What that's all about is tying together the world of ALM, the software world, with the world of PLM, the hardware world. And again, SBM becomes that glue. SBM is the glue that ties those two worlds together, that orchestrates between the hardware and the software side. So you can kind of deliver products that better meet the customer needs. If we drill down on this solution, look at it a little bit more carefully, it's very similar to what we showed before. It's the same core components that we actually deliver here. So Serena Business Manager is what's actually tying together those systems in that embedded software tool chain. So providing the integrations with the PLM systems from companies like Siemens and Dassault, it can actually integrate with some of the modeling tools that people are using for model-driven development in the embedded software space. So modeling tools from companies like MathWorks, for example. On the quality side, I mentioned Parasoft before. They've got a great solution that's very policy-based and process-based with compliance packs that help you enforce policies and standards around things like ISO 262 for the automotive segment and for the aerospace segment, DOE 178B. These are very important safety critical standards in those industries, and this solution helps support that. And then one of the other big challenges, if you look at the embedded software segment where people are developing products, a lot of variance. If you're developing a jet aircraft, you have to develop a jet aircraft that's going to work for many different branches of the military, the Army, the Navy, the Air Force. Many times those aircraft are sold overseas to many different countries. There's a lot of variance that happen there, and you have to manage all the software variance. So there's companies out there that really focus on that. We have a partner called Big Lever that works with us on that area. And at the top, the Lifecycle dashboard, some of the metrics are different and unique to the embedded world, but it's the same dashboarding capability. We'll actually provide metrics that's pulling information not only from the Serena Business Manager and Requirements Manager tools, but also pulling information from some of these other products that are in this tool chain. Okay, so just in closing, I want to drill down just on a couple of the other solutions and talk about some of the themes that we're working on in Requirements Manager and Development Manager. So if you look at Requirements Manager, I talked about variance and how important that is. That's something that's very increasingly important for our Requirements Manager customers in the marketplace. So we're going to be providing better support for variant management. So you can say, here's a requirement, and it's common to all my jet aircraft, and here's a variant for the Navy. Here's a variant for the Army, et cetera. And also in the IT space, focusing on some reuse capabilities. Requirements quality is important. We talked about you want to make sure that the requirements are correct. Otherwise, what you're going to deliver out the other end isn't going to meet the customer requirements. So we'll be working on tools that they can do quality checks on your requirements. Are these requirements correct? We can do some textual analysis. We can evaluate some of the requirements. We can evaluate some of the dependencies and highlight some things that might potentially be errors. And then finally, in some sectors, it's very important to be able to publish a pretty extensive requirements document. Again, in these safety critical sectors, you need to be able to publish a document that shows all the requirements end to end. So we'll be working on advanced publishing capabilities so you can actually pull out a document that's pulling information not only from the Serena tools, but also from some of the third-party tools to provide a complete document of here's the requirement specification. Okay, and in closing, I want to talk a little bit more about development management. So on the development management side, this is for both the embedded software world and the IT world. We're going to be continuing to double down on our support for parallel development. We have very strong support for parallel development in Dimension CM with streams. And in the mainframe world with our ERO capability, we're going to continue to extend and advance those based on feedback that we've gotten from customers. And we're also going to continue to extend our capabilities around Agile, providing tighter integration between Agile planning and some of the development management solutions, as well as additional support for Agile techniques like continuous integration, continuous deployment type support. On the quality side, we'll be making significant investments here on the quality management front. We'll be beefing up our test case management, so building on top of SBM, providing a robust test case management solution. And then on the testing side with automation, we'll be strengthening our partnerships and integrations with companies like Parasoft, with SmartSoft, and with HP Quality Center. And then finally, the mainframe. Mainframe is critically important to us. We'll be focusing on a couple things here. One is orchestrating the mainframe as part of the solution. So providing better integration and support in our development management solutions for the mainframe. So those KPIs can get fed up into the dashboard. Organizations that are delivering and working on projects where it's heterogeneous, where it has a mainframe component and a distributed component, we want to make sure that you can kind of manage that in a single system and make sure the mainframe is part of this orchestrated ALM and orchestrated IT picture. And then finally, focusing on mainframe modernization. And this for us does not mean getting off the mainframe. What we're actually seeing is the mainframe is actually growing even more. you're starting to see new workloads that are coming on the mainframe, and people are seeing the power of the virtualization capabilities in the mainframe. So with the growth of ZOS and Z-Linux, people are putting new modern workloads on their mainframe. So we're seeing more Java workloads. We're seeing people developing an Eclipse for the mainframe. So we're providing more support for Eclipse development on the mainframe, more support for WebSphere running in the mainframe environment. So I hope this has given you a taste of where we're going with Orchestrated ALM, the vision and roadmap. In a 30-minute session, it's kind of hard to provide a lot of details, but we have a number of breakout sessions where you can drill down and get more specifics in terms of vision and roadmap for each of these areas. If you want to learn more about Orchestrated ALM, Orchestrated Product Development, the mainframe, that's there. Some of the new solution suites that I talked about, there's some roadmap sessions that I've outlined here if you want to go learn more. So with that, I want to close. I want to thank you very much for being here. I look forward to meeting as many of you as I can. If you have any questions on Orchestrated ALM, please don't hesitate to seek me out, and I'd be happy to answer any of your questions. And with that, I would like to turn it over to my colleague, Ali Khairulamoom. I hope I said that right, Ali. But please welcome him to the stage to talk about Service Manager and Request Center.